and it is the last Friday or Thursday in the month of January.
Or
And,
July.
or July, yes. All of the above. My God, I am so confused. What am I doing here? It's like that song. How did I get here? And what is the meaning of all of this? And I guess it's the reason for these discussions
It's true.
is to try and figure out what the heck is going on and how can I stop it?
Yeah. Well, the good news is we don't need to stop it necessarily. We just need to wake up from it. I think as we're going here, it's all about letting go of the fear, letting go of the judgment, letting go of the pain, which is one of the things we're going to be talking about today. And not just the letting go of the pain, actually, our desire for pain, which seems like a contradiction, seems like no one actually wants that. But as we go into the depths of the ego, we see that no, the ego is hungry for it, like a kind of bloodthirsty little monster.
Absolutely. And it was turned into an art what a couple of hundred years ago with the Marquis de Sade, but it seems like it's been a prevalent part of the human experience since humanity climbed out of that pool of gurgling chemicals that was struck by lightning somewhere in the distant past, or at least that's how a lot of people envision our heritage beginning.
True, I remember that day very fondly.
It was an electrifying experience. So yes, I can understand why you would have that permanently etched into your consciousness there. Actually, one of the most fascinating things, this again is what I find so amazing about the duality of this experience that we are collectively unfolding here, is that, every bad has a good and every good has a bad. And one of the things that I have been fascinated with and collected a few images from when people get struck by lightning, it leaves the most amazingly beautiful um, impression on the human flesh, and it'll stick around for 6 months or a year or 3 or 4 years, and it looks like a tattoo that was done by a really um, talented steampunk artist. I mean, when you see these scars that are left on the human body, it is astonishing and beautiful beyond belief. And yet, when you're actually getting struck by lightning, I'm sure it's not exactly the high point of the day for you.
Yeah, it's probably very shocking when it happens.
It absolutely is, and you get that you get that after effect of being amped up for the rest of the day. So
if you're conscious.
You want to avoid coffee, among other things.
All right. Well, that actually kind of does fit around with our topic for today, which is the subsection in the Obstacles to Peace part of the text, entitled The Attraction of Pain on 414. It's a very interesting title even for a section, because again, it goes counter to what we think. We think, no, I don't want pain. I want to get rid of pain. I want to stop pain. I want to end pain. I want to be apart from pain. What we don't see is that on a very deep subconscious level, we love pain. We want pain. We hold pain dear. Why would we do that? What's the motivation for us in actually being magnetically drawn to pain? And we can see that in people's love of horror movies, or the rubbernecking that happens when we drive past a car crash. There's this attraction towards pain and suffering. But personally, the big reason why we are attracted to pain is because pain says, I exist. Pain says I am as a separate thing. When we're in pain, we say, I am in pain. I am hurting. I am suffering. You know, be kind to me because I need your kindness. But there is a me in that. And that is really the purpose of pain. The purpose of pain is to prove to us, and it doesn't truly prove it, but we attempt to prove that the separate self is real. The separate self is not real. There is no cause for pain. There is no justification for pain. And all of this pain we have experienced in our lives and may continue to experience is nothing but a giant dream, nothing but a delusion that we are inflicting on ourselves and that we can awake from. That's really the good news here.
Well, and the actual, core of all of this is that ultimate recognition that I am not who I thought I was. And that is something that is more painful than all the other types of pain that we are inclined to indulge ourselves with. And even if you think you are this highly evolved spiritual being, when you start to get into those silent spaces and you actually confront the ego and feel the fear that the ego generates when you begin to contemplate the idea that I am not this person, I am not Chris, I am not Barrett, I am not, whoever. That gets you into a very tremulous kind of experience. You can hear your heart flutter. You can feel, that little bit of a rush and those cold chills that break out on your arms. And that is because we have created a false sense of self that we are willing to die for. And that is, the saddest part of this whole experience that we are projecting into the infinitude of life.
Yeah, and I think just to read some sections here that really speak to what we're talking about. He says, faith in the eternal is always justified, for the eternal is forever kind, infinite in its patience, and wholly loving. It will accept you wholly and give you peace. Yet it can unite only with what already is at peace in you, immortal as itself. The body can bring you neither peace nor turmoil, neither joy nor pain. It is a means and not an end. It has no purpose of itself, but only what is given to it. The body will seem to be whatever is the means for reaching the goal that you assign to it. Only the mind can set a purpose, and only the mind can see the means for its accomplishment and justify its use. Peace and guilt are both conditions of the mind to be attained, and these conditions are the home of the emotion that calls them forth, and therefore is compatible with them. So here we're really getting to the crux of what is making the choice. As we go through our daily lives, it looks like our body is making the choice. And we think that the mind is in the brain, which is in the body. But what we don't get is that the mind is making all of this up. The mind is making up the whole experience of this world and of your body, and helping to convince you that the body is what you are. And it certainly feels that way. It feels like the body is us. It feels like the body's experiences are our experiences. But what we're doing is we're starting to see that that is just a trick. That is just a mental fallacy that we have identified with, but that we can start to question, and we can start to step a little bit apart from all the experiences we're having here. And it's really a good thing, because then when something happens, then when someone insults your body, you start to say, oh, well, that wasn't really me. That insult wasn't really at me, because what I am is this eternal, loving kindness. What I am is this unending peace and joy. And that doesn't have anything opposite. That doesn't have anything outside of it. And it really starts to change our experience so that even in tough circumstances, we can respond with more and more kindness.
Very, very true. And one of the things that I always found interesting when I was, or when I am reading from passages from the New Testament, that one real brief thought that Jesus shares with us, where he says, "I die daily." And if you, if you're willing to examine that from a lot of different angles, I think that it becomes very easy to comprehend what he was trying to communicate to us. And that was that he was letting that Jesus part of him completely and entirely go. He was allowing that construct of a sense of self to die, but to step through the process in an awake state. In other words, not to fall deeper into the dream and to fall asleep again, but when Jesus was speaking of "I die daily," he was saying that I step out of Jesus and I am experiencing the Christ, the totality of the expression of God, the child of God. So there are a lot of different convoluted avenues when we start getting into any kind of dialogue about reality and who we are and what our identity is all about. And you can go down that road of thinking or imagining that, well, if I kill myself, I've got cancer, I've got this, I've got that, so I'll just kill myself and this will all be over. And the whole point that all of the great spiritual teachers have made over and over again is that that doesn't work. That is not the resolution. That is not the way out. We have got to consciously look at who we thought we were. We have got to consciously identify our ego and then let go of it, even if only for a second. So if you can do that just for a second, you're going to pop right back in to being Fred or Charlie or, whatever. But the truth is that in that second, you have that experience of universal sonship. You have that experience of the Christ that is always the element that is propelling you, that's making you who you are. So we do have to just make that distinction around the ideas of transformation and death, because it's not the ego's idea of death, but it is the Christ within us that emerges and brings forth that one most fundamental truth in life, which is that God itself is life, and life is unstoppable and unkillable.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments about the idea of suicide, because a lot of people do struggle with that. And the Course speaks to that very clearly, saying that this world is left through life, not death. I'm kind of paraphrasing the line there, but the point is that death is just going to get you more death, regardless of what the issue is. And it's only by really awakening to our truth, by looking, as Chris was saying, at these constructs, at these ideas of who we are, and questioning them. Is it true that I'm actually a mortal being? Is it true that death is inevitable? Is it true that that has anything to do with what I am? And these are questions that ultimately we're all going to come to see that no, we are not mortal. Death has nothing to do with what we are. And what we really are is life itself. We are truth itself. We are one with God. And that separation that we have mistakenly believed in just never happened. There's really no truth to it. So just to read a little bit more from this section too, a couple paragraphs further on, It is impossible to seek for pleasure through the body and not find pain. It is essential that this relationship be understood, for it is one the ego sees as proof of sin. It is not really punitive at all. It is but the inevitable result of equating yourself with the body, which is the invitation to pain. For it invites fear to enter and become your purpose. The attraction of guilt must enter with it, and whatever fear directs the body to do is therefore painful. It will share the pain of all illusions, and the illusion of pleasure will be the same as pain. So here's another interesting equivalence that Jesus is giving us, that pleasure is the same as pain. Now, in our experience, that certainly doesn't seem to be the case. But what they have in common that is really important here is that both of them reinforce the importance of the body. Both of them reinforce the idea that we are somehow this individual thing. And that is a statement that oneness is not true. Now, does this mean you should feel wrong or guilty about enjoying a good or having a pleasurable sexual experience? No. This is not about increasing guilt at all, but it is about changing our idea of what we are and questioning that in our life so that we can come into that greater state of being.
That's very true. And I think going down to the foundation of all of this, it comes back to something that is very East Indian, Hindu, and Buddhist, as far as bringing these thoughts up and discussing them in open debate or in open communication. It's the idea of attachment. I think the Eastern disciplines have probably much better at casting a light on that one fundamental element within the whole human experience, which is that the more we are attached, the more we become a slave to these sensations. We become attached to the idea of good, and so we strive and struggle to make good happen over and over and over again. And we become fearful of bad, and so we put all of our effort into avoiding bad. And it's, again, that little two sides of the same coin. The whole idea of having an attachment creates the responses that are very Pavlovian. The bell goes off and the dog heads to the food dish. And, you know, a lot of times in our ego state, we are the dog. But once we start to awaken, you know where I'm going with this, Barrett? Once we start to awaken, we become dog spelled backwards, which is God.
Oh, no, that's a good one.
But nonetheless, that really is what our lives are. You know, it's the old image of the horse that is propelled forward by having somebody dangle a carrot in front of it. And that's how we respond to life. We're always in anticipation, and we're always trying to find our good and avoid our bad. And it goes right back down to that core of how much we are immersed in the life experience. If we are fully immersed in this dream, then we are addicted. And it's the darkest of all addictions. This is an addiction that makes heroin look like a joyride. And it really does. You know, when you stop and think about it, our addictions control us. And so every day, if we can take a little bit of a tiny step away from attachment, I think that is a huge, huge step forward in stepping into our truth.
Yeah, it's true. And it is that step-by-step idea. You know, sometimes we go to these very absolute ideas, you know, only love is real, the body is an illusion. And it seems sometimes that is just so far beyond us that we could never get there. But the good news is we only have to take the next step. We only have to heal this issue that's showing up for us right now. And maybe we can't even heal that whole issue right now, but we can heal this little aspect of it. So we just do that. And eventually, as we chip away bit by bit, day by day, maybe even lifetime by lifetime, we do get to that state of pure bliss. We do get to that state of enlightenment, of peace, of joy, of the unfettered knowledge that God is. And that's a goal that, in my mind, the only goal worth achieving is to come to that awareness of that truth and to know that that is our truth as well.
Exactly, precisely. You know, when we go all the way down to this bottom of this subsection that we're looking at here, it's got a nice little blip here that really puts a nice light on what we've been discussing. It says, "It is not given to the ego's disciples to realize that they have dedicated themselves to death." You know, and that's that projection out of the moment. That is that, you know, desire or fear space that we live in all the time. And so we're allowing the ego to distract us so that we're not seeing truth for truth. It says, "Freedom is offered them, but they have not accepted it. And what is offered must also be received to be truly given." In other words, the fact that some part of who we are is still in that state of self-awareness, of knowing our own deeper truth, even though the ego has been manipulating us. The freedom is always there right at our fingertips. And sometimes it's in the most dire of circumstances that we are willing to stop and accept that freedom.
Yeah, we don't always have to hit rock bottom in order to have that lift up, but sometimes that is how it happens. And, you know, whatever that circumstance is for us, that is our motivation to choose love. That choice is available. It's always right now, it's always right here. We can't choose love in the future or in the past because those things don't exist. It's only ever in this now that we can choose love. So as we're talking and as you're listening to us, maybe go in just a little bit right here. What is that thing that you've been resisting choosing love around? What is that issue in your life that you've been just cowering a little bit from or afraid of going into it? Be willing to hold the hand of love as you go into that a bit further, and allow love to really change it for you, to really open it up, to really show you something new that you never felt or experienced about that before. Because there always is a way to see everything in your life through that loving perspective. And it does take patience, it does take persistence, but it's why we practice. It's why we do this, so that we can have that experience regardless of what is unfolding in our physical worldly experience.
Exactly. And one of the things that that I find a little bit salient here in this final part of our discussion today is that idea of freedom. Freedom is offered to you, but what is freedom in unto itself? It is liberation. And liberation is often the thing that we have a huge amount of fear built up around.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of a sudden the chains, the shackles are gone. And we don't have to stand in that corner any longer under that rain cloud and be attached to a circumstance, an event, an individual, whatever it was that we had become so crippled by. And liberation is the capacity to take the next step, to walk away from something that you consciously or unconsciously held very dear for a very, very long period of time. And that can cause, you know, a cathartic experience when you let go, when you actually say, okay, I don't need this anymore. You can feel that jolt and that flow of liberation, but you also feel that crescendo from the bubble that was holding you trapped being broken. So it is a process here that we all go through, where we do have those frightful moments that we think we desire, and yet which we are unwilling to embrace. And so think about freedom throughout this day, and imagine what it would be like if your personal limitation were to vanish very suddenly. Would you be in a state where you were ready to take that next step and walk away from that sorrowful place into unexplored territory, into a new day?
Wow, that sounds good. I like that. I'm going to say yes. I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, collectively, we'll probably have 4 or 5 people out of our normal circle of 35 to 50 that will join us on this one, and we'll all meet up in the sunlight somewhere, maybe in Costa Rica, right?
There you go. Yeah, well, Chris is referring to an event, a Course in Miracles event in Costa Rica coming up in November 12th through the 19th that I'm organizing with a couple friends of mine. It's going to have a Course in Miracles teachers, healers, yoga, all the meals are included. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, you can reach out to me directly. My email is Barrett, B-A-R-R-E-T, at barretthedeen.com, BARRETHEDEEN.com. I'll be happy to share more information about that with you. And Chris and I are meeting in the flesh this coming Sunday, July 31st, down in Alsip for our Step into the Light 1 to 4 p.m. workshop. It'd be good to have you there as well.
Yes, absolutely. And there is a distinction. We are meeting in flesh, but we are not going to be consuming flesh, at least not not at that event. So you can get past your fear of that. It won't be a flesh-eating experience, but perhaps it'll be a flesh-vanishing experience. That can be fun too.
There you go. There you go. Yes, no flesh-eating bacteria at this event either.
Right, right. We're saving that for later. But
it's our intense initiation into our group.
Yes.
You can
our cabal, as some refer to it.
Be a member of our group.
Well, it has been a delightful discussion this morning, Barrett, and I think we've got a lot of stuff coming up here where people can join us for events, and more things are going to be coming up around that, and more videos coming about how to slide sideways out of that unhappy position that we always find ourselves in this mortal dream.
Yep, moving on up. Here we go, stepping into the light.
There you go. Well, I will be chatting with you on Sunday, and we'll be available for those who are in the region who want to come down and hang out with us in Alsip. I think it's going to be a good event.
Yeah, it'd be great to have you there, and I'll see you then, and I'll see you next week online too for those of us in our online community. Look forward to that as well.
You take care.
All right, you too. Bye, man.
Goodbye.